everyone, I'm Akshi Vimal and today I'm going to be speaking to Paul Fayad. He's the co-founder of ELM Learning and Positive Leader. He's also a humanitarian that works heavily in Nepal with young girls to stop them from being sex trafficked. He also started the East Side Youth Sports Foundation in Detroit that gives young children access to sports, specifically hockey, who wouldn't otherwise have the opportunity. Okay, so now we're going to flip it. We're going to talk a bit. I want to ask you a bit about the PAT test I did, positive leadership, all of that. So, can you just tell me a little bit more about how you developed it? How did the whole process happen for you? Because when I did the test, I was just telling my parents, I was like, I'm shook. Like, I feel so red. I feel like you just read all of me.
Yes. So the PAT is called it is a positivity assessment tool. And it's a tool. So it's not a test, okay? Because a test means right or wrong. An assessment means this is where I'm at, and here's what is next, right? Well, the test, everything ends. With a tool and an assessment, everything begins. So it's a beginning of what we see as awareness. So how it started is a lot through my childhood. I was witnessing how different it was that my siblings were to me. And my parents, my mother in particular, used to always say I was the wrong baby, that somehow we ended up with you. Well, I don't have no determination as to whether that was a good thing or a bad thing, because she's dead now and I never did ask her the question. But I was the happy-go-lucky one. Yeah. And I was the one that had this fascination with knowledge and education. My brothers and sisters are all very smart, but they were not happy-go-lucky. They seemed to always be in this rut, you know. And we weren't that far apart. There was 4 of us. We were only like a year and a half to 2 years between each one of us. I was the youngest. So I got to witness this transformation of them to teenagers to adults. And it was very different than what I visioned my life was compared to what they visioned their life was. So this fascination with behavior became something, and I'm very intrinsically motivated to learn, that I started doing research on, even when I was younger, when I first started in college and in high school. And it kept building. Like, why are people different? You know, why is it that, you know, so as I got into management and leadership, I started training people, and it was like some people would learn and other people wouldn't. Why are they learning and others not? Why are other people doing so well and other people not? Why are some people coming in happy and some people coming in depressed? And I shifted my attention in my master's into organizational behavior, because that gave me an opportunity to see what made organizations tick. And I started reading about Drucker and Deming and all the forefathers of, and then I would look at organizations like Tom Peters would write the book about, Good to Great, things like that. And why is it all of a sudden, why the mighty fall? Why can an organization do so well and then 5 years later become nothing? So all of that is part of culture, and all of that is part of relationships. So I started to put together that concept, and as I grew my company, and it became bigger and bigger throughout the United States, I started to realize that there are differences in people. And some people can form relationships better than others, right? So why? What possesses them? Did they go to a better school? Did they have better parents? And none of that mattered. It was all inherent.
None of it matters.
No, none of it matters. So I started to do research with Dr. Lycan out of the University of Minnesota, who studied 400 twins or 4,000 twins over the course of, from the 1950s. The research is still, even though he's gone, the research is still going on. And the idea is that 2 twins should be the same. They share the same genetics, but there are 2 types of twins, right? Identical twins, right? And the other twins that are not identical. Fraternal twins. So an identical twin shares the same egg, right? A fraternal twin, the egg splits, all right? Which means identical twins would share the same genetic code,
Yeah.
whereas the fraternal twins would share 50% of the genetic code. And there was a difference. The personalities were different with the fraternal twins. And this is research that's been done for 50, 60 years. So then I started thinking, okay, if that's the case, what is it that's changing? Well, it's like everything else. You have the features of your parents. My mom had a big nose. I have a big nose. I'm Arabic. I have deep eyebrows, black hair, the whole 9 yards. Genetic, right? I'm going to inherit what my parents and my grandparents have. Personalities are the same way. They're inherent. So the science and the research has shown that about 80% of who we are in life is inherent. And it's the big 5 personality types, which are like agreeableness, openness, empathy, large portions of our emotional intelligence, psychosis, right? Our anxieties and things that we have. All of these things are genetic. They're handed down to us, just like certain cancers are handed down to us, like certain features are handed down to us. The environment that we live in only modifies our behavior, doesn't modify our personality.
So if, for example, like you never lived with your birth parents, would you still have their personality? Part of their
Yes,
personality?
that's a great question. So those studies were done of twins that were separated at birth. One went to live maybe with their biological parent or even a different parent, another one with another parent. And then when they finally got together, oh, you like gray, you like this food, you like, and then it was like, wait a minute, we are so similar to each other in so many ways. Our emotions, the way that we act, our happiness, our gratitude, all of those things were similar, even though they were not brought up together. And the interesting part is the ability for us to change is so minimal as a child. And by the time you're 14 or 15, everything's set, right? So we are who we are for the rest of our lives at that age. The movement is based on our neural freeways, our within our brains, whether or not we can open up those neural freeways, and that's very minor amounts, right? So there's a minor amount of change that occurs through childhood. The influence of the environment is very minimal. And over the course of a lifetime, these big 5 personalities maybe at best change 6 to 7%. So yeah, we're rooted. So then I started thinking, I need to find the people within the organization who will come to work for me, who will have the right personality. So I started working with different universities throughout the United States and different companies, but their tests were very long. Their assessments were very long. There you go. They were like 500 questions that would take 2 hours, like Myers-Briggs and things like that. And it was like, I can't do that. So Andrew was attending the University of Michigan. See, everything is through Andrew that's happening. My trips to Nepal. He became he became a research assistant for a professor that was getting his final professorship, right? His PhD. We became friends. He was from China, Chok-Fu Lam, Dr. Lam, and we ended up forming a company called Positive Leader together back in like 2001, 2002, and then made it official in 2011, 2012. We set up the LLC. We created the PAT over a course of 9 years. Working, it took a long time to hone it down to 145 questions, monitoring 23 traits. And then we gave it to all of the people that were successful at my other company. So I took the people that had performed well, great relationship building, lots of them, and I had them take it to establish what my baseline was of what we were looking for. Then we had 4,000 or 5,000 people through a company called Qualtrics take it to develop a standard deviation, right? So you want to tighten the deviation, the bell curve. We want the bell curve to be tight. We don't want the deviations to be too far apart. And it took years to be able to do that. A lot of questions, a lot of interviews, checking people, making sure that it was right. And the end result is what we call the PAT. The accuracy is insane. It's like 95, 96%.
Yeah.
The research that's done, and we constantly stay with the research. I'm constantly reading, he's reading, to make sure that we're not missing any of the different angles that might take place. And we began to use it for hiring. So I would go into companies as a consultant. I would analyze their entire team. You're going to love this. I would tell them who they need to fire and who they need to keep. All right, but those are corporations.
Yeah.
Because the people, what ends up happening in management is we spend 80% of our time with 20% of the people. The 20% that we're spending time with are people that are never going to change. Productivity goes down because the other people tend to want to mimic what the lower ranking people are doing because they want attention. It's called social learning. If we focus all of our attention on the people that are doing positive parts of the work, the energizers, then the people in the middle want to become energizers and productivity goes up. So people think you increase productivity by fixing.
Yeah, because you spend so much time and attention being like, okay, you're doing this wrong, get better, get better, get better. Sometimes you don't look at the people who are already doing well.
And how do you feel if you were a person who was working very hard and I'm spending all my time with this person who's not doing the work? Your productivity is going to go down.
Yeah.
You may even leave the company. So we focus our attention. The whole concept of positive leadership is focus your attention. Well, if I get rid of the people that are not performing well and are not good at relationship building, how do I know I'm replacing them with the good people, right? I shouldn't say good. The people that can be relationship builders, right? And what we do is we use the PAT, make sure we don't hire.
But so do you think like everybody is good at something? Are there people who are
absolutely. Yeah. So that's a corporate setting. Now what's happening with the relationship that we have with the DV Institute and with the changes that we can occur is we're creating it for an individual. Now, an individual is different than a corporation. In a corporation, I have to make money, I have to be productive, I can't waste my time trying to think about what's going to happen to these people that I let go. I have to focus on the betterment of all, right? Yeah. So I always say the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few or the one. When you look at a company. Yeah. But when you look at an individual, we've modified the PAT. So now the PAT is an awareness. So what we've created is a new assessment that provides people, individuals, with an awareness of what are their strengths and what are the areas that they need to focus their attention on. Now, they cannot change their attention, the ability to change this personality, right? Because we know that's impossible. But if they're aware of it, right, then they can know where their strengths are and what they can focus on in order to be stronger. So you can modify the behavior, can't change the personality. But when they don't realize this awareness, then what happens is people will take other people and drag them down because they can't raise themselves up. So they create an environment that is not conducive to a proper relationship.
So, I mean, I guess the way your personality is doesn't necessarily have to align with the way you behave. Because if we are born with it mostly, and just say we inherit lots of bad traits, we don't necessarily have to be a bad person. Right?
Yeah, let's not use bad. Let's use traits that are not conducive to performing a good relationship. Okay, so let's take the concept of two concepts. Let's take the concept of somebody who's an extrovert and introvert. Those are personality traits, all right? If I'm an introvert, it's difficult for me to talk in front of people. Yeah. Right? But I know that now, right? I'm aware of that now. So I now have this awareness. I could still get up in front of people, but the amount of energy and preparation has to be totally different. Yeah. So now I have to prepare. I know I have to prepare. These are behaviors. I have to learn more about what it is I'm going to speak about so I'm more comfortable. I have to maybe get up earlier, have a better breakfast, do some meditation, prepare myself for the amount of energy that it will take for me to become an extrovert for that moment that I'm speaking. Behaviors.
Yeah.
I'm not going to become an extrovert.
Yeah.
The minute I get off the stage, I'm back to being an introvert.
And be alone
and I probably am going to be very tired.
Yeah. Yeah.
So see that. So a deviation or a personality deviant behavior. So I don't like to use the term deviant, but if I'm an alcoholic, that's a personality trait. It's not a behavior. The behavior is the drinking.
Yeah,
I'm never
you can
going to
be an
not
alcoholic
be,
and not
right.
drink. Yes.
If I never drink, I'm never going to have the problem. The behavior is the drinking. My personality is I'm still an alcoholic, right?
And it may show up in different behaviors.
Yes. So it's like if I don't drink, if I remove the behavior, I could live a normal life.
So could you if just say I'm an alcoholic and I've never drank before, so I did this test when I'm pretty young, like 16, 17, and it kind of comes out. Could I use it to be like, hey, I might more likely than not have alcoholic behavior in the future, and I know to be careful with that? Is that something you could use it for?
The test won't show that deviant, that behavior of that personality trait of being an alcoholic. What you want to do is you want to look at your family. If my dad was an alcoholic, my uncle was an alcoholic, and my grandpa was an alcoholic, which occurred in my family. So my brother had an addiction issue. My uncles had both addiction issues. I told my two sons, you need to be aware that your family has this addiction issue. You could have that trait. So be careful and know to recognize it. I'm not saying don't drink, but I'm saying if you drink and you like it, there's a good chance it could become
How much can you avoid it?
Well, that depends on the individual,
yeah.
right? Yeah, that depends on the individual.
If everybody in your family smokes, and you're like, I'm not going to smoke, but eventually you end up being a smoker, it's like, how long can you avoid it for? Is that just...
That's up to the individual. Sure.
Interesting.
Awareness is I don't react. I act. Awareness is I now know that I'm not an extrovert. I now know that maybe I'm not good with communication. So I don't keep reacting to that. I act through the awareness. I have an awareness. I have to do something about it. So the PAT gives us an insight into who we are, right? Now, whether or not you choose to do something with the insight, a whole nother thing.
Oh. I don't have any more questions.
Okay.
But that was so interesting.
I appreciate it.
I mean, when I did the test, like I told you, I was shocked. I was like, I needed to hear that. Like, I knew some of the things about me, but I think it was put in a way that I was like, yeah, this is kind of who I am, and in an interesting way.
There's a relief, but then there's a realization that now I have to do something.
Yeah, I was like, okay, I know, but where do I go from here?
The work is to come. All I can give you is the picture. Now you got to do something with it. Right.
All right,
This
Paul.
is beautiful. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for talking to me. This was so much fun.
Thank you. All right. That's a cut. Wrap.
We're done.